And we have Kevin Rose and Joe Dougherty. Meredith? Oh, thank you. Okay. Joe Dougherty is the media spokesman for the Utah Division of Emergency Management and does about 100 media interviews a year. An early social media adopter, Joe also provides regular training and conference presentations on communications, media relations, and can solve a Rubik's Cube. And he and his family live in Davis County. And then Kevin Rose. Kevin currently works for the state of Utah as the statewide interoperability coordinator. In this position, he is responsible for coordinating communication with local, state, and federal agencies. Kevin is the liaison of the State Interoperability Executive Committee and manages several federal communication grants. He currently is coordinating the implementation of the nationwide public safety broadband network for Utah. So we'll just go ahead and get started whenever they're ready, and then we'll just leave about 10 minutes for questions after. Is that okay?
That's right.
Okay.
I might just stand here for a minute. I'm just curious, how many people work for government agencies here? Oh, good. That's excellent. A lot of my recommendations to government people are really relevant, and some of the things that I can offer are free to government, not always so free to private sector people, because you guys just make money all the time and we don't. So anyway, like you said, I'm Joe Dougherty. I came from the media world. I used to be a reporter at the Deseret News, covered a lot of things about state and local politics, covered local government, got almost everything that you can cover in the news business. I had a chance to do at least once, and sometimes on multiple occasions. When I started in journalism, this was in the early 2000s, there was no such thing as an iPhone. There's no such thing as Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. What did we watch videos on back then? Oh, stupidvideos.com was really all that we had, and they were these little postage stamp sized videos of people doing really stupid but very funny stuff. Then we started seeing all these things called social media come on. We saw Twitter, which didn't really get quite at first. It was like, why are people posting status updates about eating cereal in the bathroom? One, why are you doing that? And then why are you telling people about it, right? And then we would see Facebook started at Harvard University as a way for the students to connect. And originally you had to have, I think, a .edu email address to even be able to have a Facebook account. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. One of the world's largest video sharing site. You can learn everything there. In my bio, it says I learned to solve the Rubik's Cube. I learned from YouTube. That's where you can learn anything from YouTube, including stuff you don't want to learn. And so sometimes we joke that maybe they'll find a way to combine Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube into one big social network called UTwitface. Could happen, because we know there are plenty of twit faces on all of these networks. But the one thing that I've seen is how important and how critical these social networks are for getting information out to the public, or out to anybody. When in the public information world, we have one saying that we use all the time. It's about getting the right information at the right time to the right people so they can make right decisions for themselves. When everybody on this earth with a smartphone, how many people here have smartphones, by the way? Anybody still have dumb phones? I still have a dumb phone and a smartphone, so half smart. When everybody with a smartphone can become a reporter, can post something to the internet and it goes around the world, we realize how quick we need to be as first responders, especially with the public information. We want to be able to dispel rumors. We want to be able to get people the resources that they need, tell them where shelters are, tell them where to evacuate to. And fortunately, we've been able to exploit these tools, the social media tools, to great benefit. Quick question here. Anybody, little survey for the group. How many people here have a Facebook account? Okay. How about the agency or company you work for, do they have a Facebook page? Pretty common. How about a Twitter account, personal Twitter accounts in the room? Yeah, a couple. Company or agency Twitter accounts? Yeah, we have I think we have about 7 and maybe more coming in my agency. We have a lot of different voices that we want to make sure are heard. Okay, how about let's take back maybe by 3 years. Anybody have a blog, or your spouse has a blog? Yeah, got one of those. Awesome. Just like to see kind of what we're dealing with, what kind of exposure that you have had to some of these tools. Sometimes I have to be the social media missionary, and unabashedly so. Telling people I am here to convert you to using social media, or making sure that you understand how important it is that it's used in emergencies. This first video I'm going to show you comes to us, it's on YouTube, obviously, using social media right here. This comes to us from a group called Socialnomics. They do a lot of social media research, especially toward marketing. So you're going to see some stats in here that are related to business, and how you reach out and how you get customers and that kind of stuff. But I like this video a lot because it really shows a lot of the overall implications of how social media has infiltrated our world. Isn't that interesting? Of course, what happens on Facebook, or what happens in Vegas stays on Facebook and all those places. But you just see, if so many people in the world are accessing social media, doesn't it make sense that we need to be there too? Is social media the only tool we're going to use? No. No, if the power goes out, if communications infrastructure is gone or wiped out, are these tools going to work? Not very well. They've been amazingly resilient in some disasters. You should see the stream of, and I gotta get the graphic for this, or the video for it, but you should see the stream of data just on Twitter that is going out of Japan when they had their massive 9.0 earthquake. The tweets continued to flow unimpeded, even though they had a major earthquake. We have seen, probably my favorite example is just how fast some of these things are. There were people in New York City who were receiving tweets in 2011. They were receiving the tweets about the Virginia earthquake before the shock waves actually arrived in New York City. So if you can be faster than an earthquake, why wouldn't you jump on some of these tools? Now, this is something that we preach to all emergency responders, county sheriffs, all sorts of elected officials. We're constantly, and when I say we, it's me and other public information officers like me, because there's still resistance to using some of these tools. We hear from some saying, we're not ready for that. It's like, the time, unfortunately, is now. You want to use these tools well before you're ready for them. One great example is the Sanpete County Sheriff, Brian Nielsen, great guy. He happened to be in a class that I was teaching for brand new public information officers. It's one that we teach to people who may find themselves in front of the camera at some point. This is the Sanpete Sheriff Twitter account. Now, Sheriff Nielsen set up this account when he was in my class. Like, I was actually in the middle of teaching, and I got the notification on Twitter that Sanpete Sheriff is now following you. And I stopped my lecture. I'm like, what, did you just set that up just now? And he goes, yes, I did. I'm like, good, because you need to be on here, and you need to be using it. And he said, but Joe, how am I going to get anyone to follow me? I'm Sanpete County. And it's like, yeah, you are Sanpete County. Not a lot happens there. Fast forward about a year, fast forward a year and a month or so to June of 2012, when we had the Wood Hollow fire erupt in Sanpete County. We had a federal firefighting team show up. Great job fighting the fire, really big fire, one of the biggest fires that we had that year, but there's no information going out about this fire. There's no information on evacuations, or it was really just kind of a black hole. Unfortunately, the public information person for that fire team wasn't up on social media. But you know who was? The Sanpete County Sheriff. He and his 40 followers. Brian starts tweeting information as he gets it. Hey, the reception center for the Red Cross is open at this location. Media, I'll be available for interviews here. On and on and on. And I want to show you I wanted to show you his account just so if you ever feel like going back and scrolling through it to some of his early tweets about it. He became the source for information because I was one of the few people who was following him, and I have a few more followers than him. It's okay. And most of the people who follow my account are members of the news media. So what I could do is retweet or forward on Twitter his information. It gets to the people who need it, the broadcast, the people who have bigger broadcast tools, and suddenly everyone feels like, oh, we understand what's going on with this fire now. If you had a fire threatening your community, wouldn't you want to know about it? Wouldn't you want to know where you're going to evacuate to? Wouldn't you want to know the status updates and all those kinds of things? The sheriff's office was able to do, and they came off looking like rock stars. The same thing happened in Washington County in 2010. The public information officer team down there got together, and they weren't using Twitter right away, and they were getting tons of phone calls in the Joint Information Center. We call it the JIC in emergency management. They're in the JIC. You have about 20 PIOs working together, trying to write news releases, trying to answer the phone calls, all this stuff. Someone shows up and volunteers and says, let me run Twitter for you. And they said, okay, fine, go do Twitter. It was amazing when they saw the phone call volume drop off. In fact, everybody stopped calling because they were getting verified information, verified accurate information from official sources. There's one person who continued to call. It was a radio reporter who didn't yet have a Twitter account. And they like to joke about that. In fact, that was part of the conversations they were having with him is, hey, you really got to go get a Twitter account. He's like, but I need sound, and you can't get sound from Twitter all the time. So it works, and it's fast. And it helps you be as fast as you possibly can be. Now, I'm not the most technical guy in the world. You guys are probably all a lot more technical than me, but I can just imagine that a robust network, a robust broadband network across the state will continue to serve this need with the increased numbers of mobile devices, increased use of social media, and just being out there. It is really, the social media is probably the favorite tool that I have in my PIO toolbox. I just want you to see one more glance at the sheriff's Twitter account right here. He started off that, he had 40 followers before that fire. Now he's got 1151. The people will find you if you have the right information. If you have something valuable, you have valuable content. And that's the thing that we're always trying to develop is valuable content for the people. Now, it's not always emergencies all the time. We talk about emergency management. There are actually 4 or 5 different parts of emergency management. One of those is preparing. You have to prepare before the actual disaster happens. And there are great tools to help people do that. I manage all the social media for the Be Ready Utah. So make sure I'm going to give you enough time, Kevin. I manage all the social media for the Be Ready Utah program. That's the state's emergency preparedness campaign. I'm just going to pull this video up really quick. And we found a great way to use YouTube to help people understand preparedness. I always have to let that one play through the end because I want to make sure everyone knows they're invited to participate in the Great Utah Shakeout happening April 17th of 2014. That video was incredibly fun to make. That was 5 hours of my life right there that you just watched in 1 minute in my basement, moving all the supplies for my emergency kit around 1 inch at a time. It was something like 600 frames or something like that. It was crazy. But most gratifying part of that, probably when Governor Herbert had that up on his Facebook page. You have the governor sharing your content. That really helps get your message out there. And we continue to share this video, and it hasn't had hasn't gone quite viral yet. You guys could help with that if you all share it, but I wouldn't dare solicit that. I'm just mentioning it. But it's so fun. And I gotta tell you, it puts a smile on my face every time I see that little flashlight signal to all the other little items in the kit. So if you look at this, there are so many different ways to communicate. We can use Facebook, we can use YouTube, we can use Twitter. All of these tools that exist and help us be so fast. What's that? Yeah, question, sure.
So we're at a Broadband conference. Obviously, Broadband allows me to do what I'm doing now faster. Do you have any suggestions or ideas? Have you seen anything of what it might look like 3 years from now? Because invariably, the tool changes to something different.
Yeah, and we have seen the move to more video in social media. We were wondering, a year ago, what's the next tool going to be? What's the next social media thing that's going to happen? And then we saw this little app. Anybody here use Vine at all? Has anybody heard of Vine? I should ask you that. Okay. Vine is an app that allows you to shoot 6 seconds of video. Yes, it's like Twitter for video, but it's still video. And what it does is that your 6 seconds, once you're done with it and you post it, it just loops. And so you've seen a lot of, if you go on there, and you actually have to look at the videos on the app. There isn't like a website you go to also. But we're seeing that people are starting to shoot more video and share that socially, even these short little bursts. Instagram responded, let's see, Vine came out in January. Within a couple months, Instagram had come out saying, oh, well, we'll offer 15 seconds of video. And so you have twice as much possibility there. So I imagine, we always, the adage, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I don't know what a video is worth, probably 1,000,000 words. A video can tell so much more than you can just in pictures or just with text. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see more video coming up in the future, maybe more apps that make that sharing, maybe social video where maybe people from different angles can shoot and share the same video and cobble that together, that would be very, very interesting to see something like that happen. Fortunately, there are greater minds than mine that are out there thinking of this and what the next thing is going to be. I think you're going to continue to see more mobile devices, more people just out there doing their thing, not from some central location too. So I wish I really had a crystal ball for some of that kind of stuff. The one thing that we can tell you over and over again is that social media works for emergency management. We see endless articles about this in the publications we subscribe to. Social media worked for the Boston bombing. In fact, one of the last statistics in that video that we watched a minute ago talked about how people trust peer recommendations over advertisers, that kind of stuff. I can tell you, Boston PD won so much credibility in the way that they were able to push information out about their bombing suspect manhunt. There were people, we actually had their public information officer speak at our conference recently, and she told us about how, and she showed the tweets, people saying, I'm not trusting anything until I see it come from Boston PD. They were able to get in front of their message and get that out there, and people knew we're trusting Boston. So we just love how much this does for you when you need to communicate. There are great tools out there that help you be more efficient. The Twitter app on your mobile device is great. It allows you to manage multiple Twitter accounts, which is fun. I mean, I manage probably 13 different accounts on there, or I have the ability to. Some of them are mostly inactive and just used for exercises and those kinds of things, but our official ones I'm able to do through the app. Another one is called Hootsuite, Hootsuite. Yes, another bird name. I hated the Twitter name when I first heard it. I was like, you want me to tweet? And I think, well, at least it's not tweet. Hey, did you tweet that earlier? Yeah, no, I would hate that too. I got over it though. It's okay to say tweet. Lots of great programs that are out there to help you do what you need to do. Probably the other thing that people overlook is just the ability to get information on Twitter. We talk about it as a broadcast medium, as your channel for putting out the information you need. This video is going to have a tongue-in-cheek look at social media. They're going to mention Foursquare, they're going to mention Facebook and Twitter. Foursquare is an app that allows you to check in at locations and earn coupons and rewards and stuff. If you check in at a place the most, you become the mayor of that place. Anybody here use Foursquare? Oh, awesome, great, okay, it's me and Kevin. So anyway, but there are some really practical examples in this video too. One thing, is anybody here familiar with The Onion? The Onion is satire. Let's leave it at that.
Congress today reauthorized funding for Facebook, the massive online surveillance program run by the CIA. According to Department of Homeland Security reports, Facebook has replaced almost every other CIA information gathering program since it was launched in 2004.
After years of secretly monitoring the public, we were astounded so many people would willingly publicize where they live, their religious and political views, an alphabetized list of all their friends' personal email addresses, phone numbers, hundreds of photos of themselves, and even status updates about what they were doing moment to moment. It is truly a dream come true for the CIA.
Much of the credit belongs to CIA agent Mark Zuckerberg, who runs the day-to-day Facebook operation for the agency. The decorated agent, codenamed the Overlord, was recently awarded the prestigious Medal of Intelligence Commendation for his work with the Facebook program, which he has called, quote, the single most powerful tool for population control ever created. Among the biggest successes of the Facebook program is Operation Farmville, which the CIA credits with pacifying as many as 85 million people after unemployment rates rose dramatically. Other features, such as the suggested friends window, have been instrumental in allowing government agents to infiltrate deeper into the friend networks of suspected dissidents. For some expert analysis now on the story, let's check in with the Fact Zone's first responders. Jason, you have written extensively about the Facebook program. Why is it so effective?
Well, one of the key reasons is that the CIA has been so thorough in convincing the nation that constantly sharing information about everything that you're doing is somehow desirable instead of deeply unsettling.
You know, the critics are saying that with the national debt being so high, is this really the time to be spending even more money on spy programs?
Well, actually, the Facebook program saves the CIA money.
That's right.
Like the Maps application, where you list every place that you've been, whether it's at the state or a country. Or
Oh, right, with the little pins, they show where you visited. Yeah,
yes,
I like that.
that kind of information would have taken the CIA months of going through hotel receipts and plane tickets to figure it all out. The manpower that Facebook saves is huge.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the calendar feature even lets the CIA know where you're going to be in advance. So that's
Right, so now if they want to pick you up for questioning, all they have to do is see which events you RSVP'd yes to and then send their agents to be waiting for you.
That's how they got my brother.
Yeah, so effective. But guys, with all the focus on the Facebook program, is it taking away from some of the other CIA programs like the Twitter initiative?
Yeah, the funding for that should be cut entirely.
Right, 400 billion tweets and not one useful bit of data was ever transmitted.
Oh, that's true. Now, is this trend of social network information gathering dangerous? I mean, just last week, the New York Times revealed that Al-Qaeda has designed Foursquare to identify popular locations for bombing.
Actually, Brooke, that's been discredited as any kind of real threat. The people that use that site are people that no one would mind seeing bombed anyway.
Yeah,
Oh, I
really,
know that.
the only
Okay.
thing the CIA has to be concerned about is people losing interest in Facebook and moving on to a new social network site, like the Chinese site Wanbi.
I love
Are you guys on Wanbi?
Oh my God,
Yeah.
it's so much more fun than Facebook.
It is great.
I love that one.
I love that you can earn friend points the more state secrets that you post. You know, I've got a lot of contacts in the State Department. You know, I think I could really rack them up.
Post them up.
I should.
All right, first responders, thank you so much as always. You know, I'm, of course, a big fan of any social networking site. It allows me to interact with my fans without having to see, hear, or smell them.
Paints a pretty sad picture for, it's a joke, it's okay. We can laugh at everybody, including the social media. But the real implications there, yes, it gives you insight into what people on Earth are talking about. Yeah, you don't have to go through their receipts to find out, not that you ever would have done that, but a couple clicks and you can see what is the mood of the people out there. What are they talking about? What's important to them? It's all just sitting out there. Twitter, everything on there is public. That's one thing you have to remind your employees. It's all public, so they may say stupid stuff on there. That's why having good social media policies is very important for you and your agency. The bottom line here is I get to turn the time over to Kevin here for something completely different. But if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take any at the end, probably after he has a chance to talk to you guys. But just remember, better, faster, smarter, quicker, all on social media, getting the right information at the right time to the right people so they can make right decisions. So thank you very much.
Okay. Well, my name is Kevin Rose. I work for the state of Utah. I work with the Statewide Interoperability Executive Committee. And so what that is we deal with public safety communications. Originally, when the committee was created, it was dealing mainly with voice interoperability, LMR radio systems, different things like that. It's since grown into public safety broadband, which is kind of the newest, latest thing. It seems like there's a lot of people that work for government here. Anybody here who works in public safety? Good. Anybody here that works with public safety? Even better. Anybody here familiar with FirstNet or ever even heard of FirstNet? Okay, awesome. So I'll give you basically an overview of how public safety uses broadband today. And we'll talk about FirstNet a little bit, what they are, a really high-level overview of that. And then we'll talk about what the possibilities are in the future for public safety and broadband. So today, public safety, police officers, fire departments, we use broadband. We use the carriers, Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, whoever is available in the area. When I started in public safety back in 2001 as a dispatcher, and then I was hired on with the Davis County Sheriff's Office as a deputy sheriff paramedic, and I still work there part-time. When I started at the Sheriff's Office, it's been about 8 years, we had computers in our cars, and we had air cards. But that was pretty much it. We used it to do inquiries, to see our dispatch calls, things like that. But that was pretty much it. Since then, it's changed in the last 8 years. So we really rely heavily on those computers in our cars now. We use them now to write citations. As a matter of fact, in the state of Utah, the citations are completely electronic. There really is actually no need for any paper copies, except for the one we give to the person who's being cited. They're submitted electronically to the state, to the courts. It's all electronic. We use our computers in our cars to write our reports. We use it to do our accident reports, which are also submitted electronically. So everything's electronic. It's funny because at the sheriff's office, I do a lot of the tech support for the sheriff's office. And anytime we have any computer problems, the computer goes down, I get a phone call from a deputy saying, hey, my computer's down. I say, okay, yeah, it's down. So it's probably going to be down for a couple of hours. He says, well, what am I supposed to do? How do I write a ticket? You say, well, if you go into your trunk and look through there somewhere, there'll be a little booklet that you can pull out and you can actually write a ticket. And honestly, when the computers go down, public safety comes to a screeching halt. So if you ever want to know when a good time is to speed, find out when the computers are down, when the internet's down, because you will not get a ticket. So public safety, we're acclimating to these changes in technologies. And like I said, how it was 8 years ago when I started is completely different than how it is now. And that's going to continue to change and to grow as we move forward. One thing you're seeing a lot more of is AVL. So we're using these data connections to transmit the location of our vehicles and our officers and our fire apparatuses and our ambulances, which is increasing our response times to incidents. So we're able to dispatch the closest unit, as opposed to more of a sectorized environment where you're assigned to a sector or an area and they just dispatch by that. Well, now we can say, hey, who is the closest officer to this call? Or where's the closest ambulance to this medical call? So we're getting the responders there quicker. So like I said, the usage of mobile data has increased drastically. I think when I first started, we were using the 2G technology, so we really couldn't do much with it. And now, we all have LTE air cards in our vehicles, and we're using that more. But we really haven't fully adopted the capabilities that mobile broadband really gives us, especially when we start getting into 4G services. Public safety recognized, several years ago that there was a need for high-speed wireless data. The needs that we had was for priority access. We talked about the Boston Marathon bombing. Who remembers hearing reports that Boston PD shut down the commercial carriers? You guys remember hearing that? There was news article, the news people were coming out saying that Boston PD shut down the wireless carriers. That's not true. They didn't. What happened? Congestion, right? Everybody that was there was Twittering, Facebooking, calling family members, doing all that stuff. Completely overwhelmed the network. You could not make a phone call. You could not get on the internet. And so as public safety becomes more reliant on broadband services, is that a problem for us? So we talk about how right now, if it goes down, public safety comes to a screeching halt. Is that problematic when we're responding to a large incident like that, to a disaster, to a shooting, to a mass shooting? Is that a problem for public safety? It is, and it's going to become a bigger and bigger problem in the future as we move forward. We need priority access. We need preemptive access. We need to be able to do our job. We need broadband speeds. We talk about social media. Joe seems to think the next trend is video, and it is. And that's true for public safety also, is video. We have a great need and usage to get video feeds. Right now, UDOT has an expansive camera system along the interstate that right now is being fed to our dispatch centers. Well, there's a possibility we could feed that to our patrol vehicles, to our fire engines, so they can see that. There's a possibility we could feed video camera feeds from a bank when we get a holdup alarm or a robbery. We can see what's going on inside that bank before we even get there. We can stream. Majority of police cars nowadays have cameras inside of them that record traffic stops and what we're doing. There's the ability for us to stream those videos back to a dispatch center or back to a command center. How valuable would that be on an incident where we're doing containment, for instance, and our incident commander can sit in his car and look at the camera feeds from all the patrol vehicles and fire engines and ambulances on that perimeter around that incident? Is that valuable, do you think, to public safety? We can't do that without broadband speeds. And then we need future applications. So there's endless possibilities of what we can do in the application world. You're already starting to see people come out, vendors, private citizens creating these different applications for smartphones that are public safety related. There's an application out there that allows people to register that they're maybe trained in CPR or they're an EMT, and they can get notifications on their smartphone. So they interconnect with some of these dispatch center CAD systems, and when they get, for instance, a cardiac arrest, a notification is set out based off geographical location of the call and geographical location of people that are capable to providing care, citizens. That now they get this alert saying, hey, you're a block away from this cardiac arrest, and they can respond and begin a CPR and start saving lives. So we recognize that we have this need, and there's going to be a huge demand for this in the future in public safety. The FCC allocated 10 megahertz of spectrum for public safety several years ago. And public safety said, that's probably not enough. We probably need more. Right next to that public safety spectrum was another 10 megahertz spectrum called the D block. Some of you guys are familiar with that. So public safety went to Congress and says, we want that D block too. We need it, so give it to us. And Congress said, well, we don't know about that. And so they tried to auction it off with a lot of different stipulations attached to it. It wasn't very successful. But there's a lot of lobbying going on up Capitol Hill to get that spectrum and to build a public safety broadband network. And last year we were successful. So it was the Jobs Creation Act of 2012 that created FirstNet, the First Responder Network Authority. So Congress created this independent federal agency that's under NTIA and instructed them to go out and build a nationwide public safety LTE network. It also gave them, hopefully, $7 billion in seed money to start this up. Obviously, is there any carriers here or service providers? Okay. Do you think $7 billion is enough to build an LTE network nationwide? No, not at all. So part of that legislation says that you're going to build some public-private partnerships to accomplish this. You're going to partner with carriers. You're going to partner with the industry to do this. You're going to utilize existing public infrastructure that could be used to help bring down the cost to build this network. Now, excuse me. Now I'd like to tell you exactly how this is going to happen, what their plan is. But I don't know. They haven't really published that yet. Hopefully very soon they'll come out with what their business plan is and what their business model is going to be. We're kind of waiting for that. Because right now there's a whole lot more questions than there are answers about FirstNet and how they're going to do this, how they're going to pull this off. This is probably the largest communication project in public safety ever done. We've never done this before. So FirstNet's governed by a board of directors, which has a mix of public safety sector people, so police, fire, government, and we have industry experts. Sam Ginn's the chairman. He came from Vodafone, if you're familiar with who he is. He's well-known throughout the industry. He's the chairman of the committee, and it's been an interesting mix actually seeing the mixture of public safety, government people, and industry people, because they tend to operate differently. Government tends to operate differently than the private sector, right? Or they have a different mentality, and it's been an interesting mix to see how this is working out. You get Sam Ginn and his people saying, "Let's move forward, let's get this done." You got the public safety saying, "Whoa, we got to take our time on this," and but they're getting a lot done. They've been up for a year, and they've gotten a lot of stuff done in this year, and their schedule of rolling this out is pretty impressive. And will be very impressive if they can pull it off in the time frame that they've kind of said that they're going to. They also, part of this legislation, required that FirstNet give a prioritized rollout into rural areas of the country and into the tribal lands. And so that's really crucial to public safety, because Salt Lake City needs broadband just as much as Vernal, right? The needs are the same. The one thing about this is going to be a nationwide interoperable network. That's something that we've always struggled with in the past when we built our radio networks, that every agency or county or city did their own, and they weren't compatible. They were in different spectrums. They couldn't talk to each other, different technologies, and it was a huge issue. I mean, that's why we created the statewide interoperable executive committees around the country, was to help try to solve this interoperability issue. Congress finally said, we're not going to do that again. We're going to do this right from the get-go. We're going to build a nationwide network that's interoperable. So this means that there's going to be one core or cores distributed around the nation that's going to operate this network and interconnect the RANs throughout the country. They're also going to give local control to local agencies, to state, cities, counties, to be able to control prioritize access to the network. So as an event's ramping up, an incident commander or a communications leader can go through and change the priority access to different groups. Maybe the SWAT team needs more access than the fire department during this time. They'll be able to do that on the fly at the incident. They'll also be providing non-mission critical voice. And one thing that's really key there is that they're not going to be replacing the radio system anytime soon. But hopefully in the future we will see that, and we'll have interoperable voice communications also over this network. So again, what will FirstNet do for public safety? First, it will give us reliable access because of the fact that that spectrum will be dedicated to public safety, and that when we really truly need it, it will be available. So when we have the Boston bombing type incidents or Hurricane Katrina or Sandy, then when we really need that system to work, it will work, that we can depend on that. It's going to give us interoperability because this is a nationwide network. It's going to give us innovation. So the idea is that, you heard the phrase, if you build it, they will come. And that's the idea we have here. Once this network's on the streets and it's available, that we're going to have innovation through the industry, that we're going to see more of these applications developed for public safety. We're going to see devices created for public safety. We're going to see a lot of partnerships happening between the community and public safety. And agencies are going to start utilizing some of these services that they don't have access to now. Frankly, a lot of them they do have access to now, they just don't do it. I think this is going to push this forward, and this is going to be the future of public safety communication as we go forward. I just could give you an idea. Let's see, what time is it? Okay, I'll show you. I have two videos, but I'll show you one video here to give you an idea of what really are the possibilities and what we're looking at. This is the future police officer. First, let me say I'm not endorsing Motorola. It's a great video that shows some of the possibilities in the future. Is everything in that video possible? A lot of that's possible today, to be honest with you. So just capping up, this network is going to be a great thing for public safety. It's going to allow us to do our job quicker, more effectively, and it's safer. I think this network will save lives. I'm the point of contact for the state of Utah with FirstNet, and we have a subcommittee that's coordinating this for the state of Utah, and we really want to get, for any of you guys that are service providers, we want to reach out to you guys. We want to get you guys involved in this process and get your input and your cooperation with this network, and use some of your assets, how we can build those partnerships. So if you're a service provider, you want more information, you want to be involved, just get with me after. So other than that, we can go for questions for either me or Joe.
Question for Joe. Your trusted sources for information, like how have you learned? I mean, people can tweet stuff all the time, and I'm just wondering who your sources that you trust, and if you have an incident, things are coming out rapidly. What do you think is best trusted sources? I mean, Boston PD, your local PD. I mean, obviously those are accounts you can follow, but who are your trusted sources of information?
Yeah, thanks. I'll just repeat that. He's asking about who are your trusted sources of information when anybody on this earth can tweet anything, and how many spoof accounts are there out there? And some with hilarious effects, I must say. But there are plenty of fake Twitter accounts out there, and even though Twitter discourages that. The one thing that I didn't get to address is some of the fundamentals of public relations and media relations. It goes back to building relationships. The relationships that you have now will help you know exactly who you can trust. And it's very important for me to know some of the people that I follow on Twitter, to make sure that I actually know that person. I know who they are. We've talked. We have relationships. It takes some analysis, though, in the heat of a moment when you have everybody tweeting about a certain incident. We could take a flood or a fire or anything like that. And it takes verifying that information and looking at it. And sometimes you have to make some phone calls. Actually, you get on the phone and say, hey, what's this thing that I'm seeing someone's tweeting over there? Sometimes you have unauthorized people tweeting about what sounds like official information. Certain things you have to take with a grain of truth, or grain of salt, grain of truth, whatever that saying is, grain of salt, because there is going to be unverified information. There's some great tools that are built into Twitter, like if I say hashtag, does that make anybody fall asleep, or just make you go, what is that? Hashtag basically creates a searchable link on Twitter. It's a way of grouping tweets by a topic. So anything that includes the same hashtag is easily searchable. You don't have to worry about following every single person. You can just follow the information you want. The PIOs in Washington County in 2010, wrong information was going out. They started tweeting with the hashtag #RumorStop, and everyone took that as a signal without ever being trained to do this. There's no handbook that says tweet #RumorStop and everyone will automatically retweet you. Everyone just immediately understood wrong information was out there. Here's the corrected information. And in very short order, that's what was being reported in the news media. So there are ways to correct the bad stuff really quickly as well. My trusted sources are all mostly government agencies. There are some members of the news media that I trust very, very much. I can't quite say 100%. But there's some people that I trust 100%. There are some people that I think I'm going to wait until that tweet gets updated before and most of the time I'm not retweeting or sending out stuff that the news media report. I am retweeting information that is coming from official sources. I got to tell you, looking at Kevin's video, I was like, I'm glad we live in the future. This is amazing. This is all the stuff that was promised to us when we were in elementary school, and it's here. It's about time.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Kevin and Joe. And then we're just going to do lunch. We'll be downstairs starting at noon.